The Biden campaign this morning returned to an active crime scene. The sub-zero Manhattan courthouse, where Democrats have been pinning Trump down with a political ankle monitor. The criminal brought with him his co-conspirators, old men in black. Punchy Bobby De Niro, wearing a mask, still trying to slow the spread of populism.
Robert De Niro, there's something about being a star where you think your opinion's more important than anybody else's, and you can go give a press conference, and he obviously has been very vocal from 2016 that he hates Trump for whatever reason. Maybe they have some personal thing.
You think Trump ever threw a punch himself or took one? This guy who ran and hid in the White House bunker when there were protesters outside.
Robert De Niro thought he was stepping onto another red carpet moment. Instead, he walked straight into a buzzsaw. What started as a political publicity stunt outside a Manhattan courthouse turned into one of the most brutal celebrity takedowns we've seen in years. Joe Rogan and Jesse Waters didn't just criticize the Hollywood legend, they completely dismantled him piece by piece, exposing the shocking transformation of a cinema icon into something nobody saw coming. Picture this: the same man who once embodied stone-cold killers and street-smart survivors is now having public meltdowns that would embarrass a reality TV star. De Niro's recent courthouse appearance wasn't just controversial, it was a masterclass in how quickly respect can evaporate. The Biden campaign sent their Hollywood heavy hitter to intimidate and influence, but what they got instead was a rambling, incoherent mess that even liberal media couldn't defend. The man who perfected the art of controlled menace on screen has become the exact opposite in real life. Gone are the calculated stares and measured words that made characters like Travis Bickle and Jake LaMotta legendary. In their place stands a bitter, shouting figure who seems to have confused volume with validity. The transformation is so complete that fans of classics like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull are left wondering what happened to the actor they once admired.
Powerful man in the world sent an actor who plays a mob boss to intimidate the jury before deliberations. Watch.
The Twin Towers fell just over here, just over there. This part of the city was like a ghost town.
Press conferences. Now everyone's heckling him everywhere he goes.
That's so bad.
Like instead of just being this cranky old liberal, now you're this guy that is yelling at other people that are Trump supporters, and they're yelling at you. Like you've opened yourself up to this nonsense. Like, why?
To be gentlemen in this world, the Democrats. You are gangsters. You are gangsters.
Now every movie you go to, 50% of the population is going to not want to go see that movie.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This wasn't just any ordinary celebrity meltdown. This was a calculated political move that backfired spectacularly, and two of the most influential voices in modern media were watching every second of it unfold. When Joe Rogan decides to dissect someone, he doesn't need to raise his voice or throw insults. He just applies logic like a scalpel, and that's exactly what happened here. Rogan looked at De Niro's courthouse performance and immediately identified the core problem: a complete disconnect between the persona and the person. Rogan's analysis cut straight to the heart of the matter. Here's a guy who built his entire career playing characters who kept their cool under pressure, who spoke softly but carried a big stick. Yet in real life, when faced with political disagreement, De Niro transforms into the kind of person his movie characters would have rolled their eyes at. The irony wasn't lost on Rogan, who pointed out that the same man who portrayed mob bosses with ice-cold composure can't handle a press conference without losing his mind. The podcast king didn't stop there. He highlighted something that resonates with millions of his listeners: the exhausting nature of celebrity political lectures. Rogan expressed what so many people feel, but rarely hear articulated. We don't want our entertainment figures to become political preachers, especially when they're clearly out of their depth. He made it clear that De Niro's political rants weren't just annoying, they were actively damaging his legacy.
Biden made an actor read a script in Lower Manhattan saying his opponent is worse than 9/11. And then the actor slipped and went off script and admitted he's trying to scare you. In politics, you can't admit you're trying to scare voters. It's not the movies. But watch what happens when there is no script.
What's your response to Republicans who say you're running on January 6th because you can't run on Biden's record?
I'd say that's absolutely absurd.
The best thing for people in Hollywood that are entrenched in that world is to shut the because as soon as they start talking, people, like as soon as Robert De Niro starts talking, I'm like, Jesus, get that microphone away from him so I can enjoy Taxi Driver.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I don't want to hear. I love De Niro. I love those mob movies. It's like
I don't want to hear him that he's a moron. I don't want to hear him talking about politics and about Trump supporters, and just shut the up, man.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't think this through. Like, this is, and he's getting yelled at. He's doing an outside press conference. Like, Robert, you're 80 years old. Don't ruin this thing. You've had this life where you were a raging bull. You know, you were in The Godfather. Like, stop doing this. Man. Don't do this.
What made Rogan's takedown so effective wasn't anger or mockery. It was disappointment. He spoke like someone who genuinely admired De Niro's work, but couldn't understand why the actor would choose to destroy his own mystique. This approach hit harder than any hostile attack could have, because it came from a place of genuine confusion rather than political opposition. Rogan basically said what millions of fans were thinking. Shut up and let us enjoy your movies without the political drama. The criticism went deeper than just politics though. Rogan pointed out how De Niro's constant need for attention had turned him into exactly the kind of person he used to mock in his films. The strong, silent types he portrayed would never stoop to public tantrums or desperate attempts to stay relevant through controversy. Yet here was their creator doing exactly that. While Rogan wielded a scalpel, Jesse Waters came armed with a flamethrower. The Fox News host didn't just criticize De Niro, he turned the entire incident into a comedy roast that left the actor looking like a fool. Waters has perfected the art of satirical destruction, and De Niro walked right into his crosshairs. Waters immediately zeroed in on the absurdity of the situation. The Biden campaign actually thought sending a Hollywood actor to intimidate voters was a good idea. The same administration that claims to be defending democracy sent someone to essentially threaten the public. The contradiction was so obvious that Waters barely had to point it out. He just let De Niro's own words do the damage.
He is the most boring interview. He used to sell his movies on Leno and Letterman, and it was like watching a WNBA game. You were just bored to death. All of a sudden, Trump became president, and he started saying things. I want to punch the president in the face. You know, he's a crooked piece of... And then all of a sudden, De Niro became interesting during his media tours. And that's the only way now he can get publicity for his film, is by cursing and saying whatever he says the movie's Ezra. So I guess
it seemed that she locked up because she's a complete and total idiot. But that's not...
She's in a pretty contest.
Not only... But that's not just that, dude. Anybody could get locked up like that. You're on stage in front of people with TV cameras pointed at you. You've never experienced that in your life, and you have a panic attack. It doesn't mean you're an idiot. And that's also Robert De Niro.
But Waters didn't stop at the political implications. He went after De Niro personally, highlighting the ridiculous gap between the actor's tough guy image and his real-life behavior. This is a man who made millions playing gangsters and hardened criminals, yet he can't handle criticism without having a public breakdown. Waters painted a picture of someone so insulated by wealth and celebrity that he's completely lost touch with reality. The Fox host's most devastating observation was about selective outrage. De Niro claims to be fighting for working-class Americans while living in luxury that most people can't even imagine. He preaches about democracy from his Upper West Side bubble, completely oblivious to how hypocritical he sounds. Waters exposed this contradiction with surgical precision, making De Niro look like exactly what he is, an out-of-touch elitist pretending to be a man of the people. Waters also highlighted something crucial that many people missed. De Niro's political activism isn't really about conviction, it's about attention. The actor realized years ago that his movies weren't generating the same buzz they used to, so he discovered that political controversy could keep him in the headlines. Every outrageous statement, every public meltdown, every courthouse appearance is calculated to maintain relevance in a world that's increasingly indifferent to his artistic output. What makes this whole situation even more embarrassing is that De Niro appears to be applying method acting techniques to his political activism. He's so committed to playing the role of outraged citizen that he's forgotten it's supposed to be authentic. Every gesture, every pause, every dramatic emphasis screams performance rather than genuine conviction.
Election coming up in November. How do you decide who you're voting for?
The economy.
Whoever tells it how it is. I think about who's better looking.
How handsome am I, right? How handsome?
Actor Robert De Niro says you must vote for Joe Biden or else.
Or else.
Or else what?
Or else the country is going to be destroyed.
We're in great shape now, right? We're doing great.
It might be destroyed.
Was the country destroyed the first time?
It was on the verge, yes.
How?
Well, it's a secret.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
I might vote for Joe Biden if Robert De Niro said it.
I'm not gonna lie, he's one of my favorite actors.
If he pays me, I don't know, $1 million.
Where's the money? All you should be asking Robert De Niro about is two things: awesome movies and divorce.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Tell me what happened to
I would
you
love to ask
with
about
the
that.
divorce. Tell me what happened if you want to talk about it, and tell me what happened to you with these awesome fucking movies. I don't need to know jack shit about his politics.
Well, he doesn't. That's the thing. He just tells you he feels a way. That's all he's got to say.
Yeah, but it's almost like it's almost unfair to have a guy like that on a public show and talk to him about politics.
Do you know what it reminds me of? When the beauty...
The problem is that real political passion doesn't look like a movie scene. It doesn't require dramatic lighting or perfect timing. When De Niro tries to channel his movie intensity into political speeches, it comes across as rehearsed and fake. People can sense the difference between authentic emotion and theatrical display, and De Niro's political performances land firmly in the theater category. This theatrical approach might work in controlled Hollywood environments, but it fails miserably in real-world political contexts. The courthouse steps aren't a movie set, and the American people aren't a captive audience. When De Niro tries to intimidate or inspire using acting techniques, he just looks like someone who's confused about what reality actually is. Both Rogan and Waters picked up on this immediately. They recognized that De Niro wasn't expressing genuine political beliefs. He was performing a role he thought would be effective. The disconnect between performance and authenticity became impossible to ignore once it was pointed out. It's like watching someone try to have a real conversation while reading from a script. Everyone can tell something's off. Perhaps the most damaging aspect of this entire incident was how it exposed the massive hypocrisy at the heart of Hollywood political activism. De Niro claims to speak for ordinary Americans while living a lifestyle that's completely removed from ordinary American experiences. He talks about threats to democracy while participating in what many see as political theater designed to influence legal proceedings. The man who built his career playing working class characters now lectures actual working class people from a position of extreme privilege. He hasn't struggled financially in decades, yet he claims to understand the economic pressures facing regular families. He lives in one of the most exclusive areas of New York City, yet he pretends to relate to people worried about crime and safety in their neighborhoods.
Excuse me. You a gangster. You're washed up.
And then they have a protest of Robert De Niro yesterday. He's a fool. He's a broken down fool standing out there, and he got maggot. He got maggot yesterday. He got a big dose of it.
Donald Trump popping off on the Biden campaign's De Niro stunt, which bombed harder than Robert's last 5 movies. The actor was outside the Trump courthouse, letting his undiagnosed Trump derangement syndrome get the best of him. And even the liberal media was embarrassed.
Shut the fuck up, man.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't think this through. Like, this is, and he's getting yelled at. He's doing an outside press conference. Like, Robert, you're 80 years old. Don't ruin this thing. You've had this life where you were a fucking raging bull. You know, you were you were in The Godfather. Like, stop doing this.
Man.
Don't do this.
I'm terrified to meet some of those people I looked up to now.
You should be.
I mean, like,
I've met a few of them, and it's actors in particular, because their whole business is pretend. Their whole business is pretend. You know, one of the things about guys like Theo or comedians, you run into comedians, their business is the opposite of pretend. Their business is just being a real person talking shit.
Yeah.
They're professional shit talkers.
Yeah.
You know, having fun, being silly, talking shit about things. And actors are not that. They're weird people, man.
This hypocrisy becomes even more glaring when you consider De Niro's recent movie choices. He's been coasting on his reputation for years, churning out forgettable films while his political activism becomes increasingly radical. It's as if he's trying to compensate for his artistic decline by becoming more politically extreme, hoping controversy will maintain his relevance. Both Rogan and Waters recognized this pattern and called it out directly. They weren't just criticizing De Niro's political views, they were questioning his right to lecture anyone given how disconnected he's become from the real world. The criticism hit so hard because it was obviously true. When you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars and haven't faced real consequences for anything in decades, what gives you the authority to tell struggling Americans how they should think? What happened to De Niro represents something much larger than one celebrity's political meltdown. It's a symbol of the growing rejection of Hollywood political influence. Americans are tired of being lectured by people who live in gated communities about how they should think and vote. The cultural backlash against celebrity activism has been building for years, and De Niro's courthouse performance became a perfect target for that accumulated frustration. Rogan and Waters represent two different aspects of this backlash. Rogan appeals to people who want honest, unfiltered conversations about complex topics. His audience appreciates that he doesn't pretend to have all the answers and isn't afraid to change his mind when presented with new information. When someone like Rogan criticizes celebrity political activism, it carries weight because he's seen as authentic. Waters represents the more combative side of the backlash. His audience is fed up with being talked down to by Hollywood elites and wants to see them get called out directly. When Waters demolishes someone like De Niro, it satisfies a desire for pushback against years of condescending celebrity lectures.
This entire thing was not a great idea.
Step away from celebrities. I don't think it helps. I think it kind of almost, in a weird way, sometimes backfires. Oh, those liberal Hollywood elites, and they're well-intentioned, and Robert De Niro is well-intentioned, but I think staying away from the courthouse would have been the best thing.
Morning Mika was taken aback by the raging Tool and tried to get the Biden camp to backtrack.
The best thing for people in Hollywood that are entrenched in that world is to shut the because as soon as they start talking, people as soon as Robert De Niro starts talking, I'm like, Jesus, get that fucking microphone away from him so I can enjoy Taxi Driver.
Together, they represent a cultural shift away from automatically respecting celebrity opinions on political matters. The idea that being good at acting or entertaining automatically makes someone worth listening to on policy issues is dying, and De Niro's performance accelerated that death. People are waking up to the fact that actors are just people who pretend for a living. They're not philosophers, economists, or political scientists. The immediate aftermath of De Niro's courthouse appearance was almost as embarrassing as the original incident. Even friendly media outlets struggled to defend him, with some actually trying to distance themselves from the whole spectacle. When your own allies start backing away, you know you've made a serious miscalculation. The damage to De Niro's reputation extends far beyond politics. Movie fans who never cared about his political views are now questioning whether they want to support his future projects. The magic of cinema depends partly on the audience's ability to forget they're watching an actor and get lost in the character. When an actor becomes too associated with controversial political positions, that suspension of disbelief becomes much harder to maintain. This is exactly what Rogan warned about. By injecting himself so aggressively into political controversies, De Niro has made it impossible for many people to enjoy his movies without thinking about his rants. He's essentially traded his artistic legacy for temporary political relevance, and it's not a good deal. The criticism from Rogan and Waters will follow De Niro for the rest of his career. Every future appearance, every new movie, every interview will be viewed through the lens of this public humiliation. He wanted to be taken seriously as a political voice, but instead he became a cautionary tale about what happens when celebrities forget their place. The irony is that in trying to become more important, he made himself less relevant than ever.